Oh, uh, this is awkward. Why did you click on this video? What are you, like a lesbian or something? I know what you are. Hello everybody and welcome to my YouTube channel. Sid Says. It's called that because I'm Sid and I'm saying things, to you. And today we're going to be talking about all these gay little lesbian vampire movies. Shout out to Maddie Danger, Asdariel, and Dolo Style on Instagram for inspiring this video and putting together a comprehensive list of all the lesbian vampire movies so that I didn't have to painstakingly do it myself. Thanks, guys! Aww. If you're like me, then that means that you too are a lesbian that loves vampire movies. And while many a vampire film may have homoerotic elements in it, there are shockingly few that are lesbian-centric. So we're here today to give the ladies a little bit of love and see which lesbian vampire films are the gayest of the gay, aka which ones are worth watching. With this in mind, we will be talking about some spoilers here and there. If you aren't interested in that, then you'll have to go watch all these films before you watch my video. Good luck and Godspeed. But for everyone else, let's get into this. So I have expertly crafted this lesbian vampire tier list from most gay to least gay. Our top tier is, of course, U-Haul on the second date. I'm not going to explain this if you don't get it, okay? If you don't get it, it means you're not gay enough, and this video isn't for you. But please don't click off. I love you. Second tier is the toxic Yuri tier. Once again, pretty self-explanatory. This is for movies that are like very gay, but maybe the relationships are a little problematic, you know. Gotta put some spice in there. Spice of life. Third tier, we have They Were Roommates. Did everyone still remembers this meme, right? Oh my god, they were roommates. Anyway, this is for relationships that have like, they got some gayness going on, but maybe we're, a little more DL about it. Then we got the no lesbians tier. Once again, pretty self-explanatory. This is for films that have no or very little, like basically non-existent lesbianism in them. But this still isn't as bad as our last tier, which is homophobic. This is kind of a sillier tier. Obviously, if the film does something genuinely homophobic, it will go here. But it's also just for films that I deem so god-awful that they're an insult to all gay people everywhere, and therefore homophobic. But with that in mind, I am going to try to do my best to rank these based on how gay they are and not how good they are. How good they are is irrelevant. We're strictly looking at the gayness for these ranks. So now that we know the name of the game and our claim to fame, let's get into it. Dracula's Daughter. This is a Hays Code era film, so I wasn't expecting to see any ladies like making out or anything, but the gayness of this one is still so subtle that I was tempted to put this in the no lesbians tier. However, after some reflection, I've decided that it should be higher than that. While subtle, there are definitely some fruity lady things happening. Some themes of wanting to be cured of this, this terrible illness, internalized homophobia. And while there isn't anything like explicit, there is this extremely intense feeling of longing. It's very pining, very lesbian. The film does end with Dracula's daughter declaring her love for a man and then dying, though, so that almost tempts me to put it in the homophobic tier. But I think the homoerotic staring is so intense that I'll put this one in toxic Yuri. Factoring in the whole Hays Code stuff, I think this one does belong in the toxic Yuri tier. If these girls were just a little bit more willing to admit that they were gay and run away together, they could have gotten that U-Haul. But instead, Dracula's daughter tries to kill the other girlie and goes straight mode, which is toxic, but still gay enough to get tier 2. Blood and Roses. No fanfare with this one. No lesbians. There is a scene where the two ladies kiss. However, I don't know how they managed it, but they made this gay kiss feel so straight. There isn't really a reason why it happens, and the final nail in the coffin for this one being a no lesbians tier for me is that the whole plot revolves around the vampire lady trying to hook up with the descendant of her long lost love, who is a man, by the way. It's like her one driving force throughout the whole film. And wanting to be with a man as a woman is very not gay. I can get why this one was put on the lesbian vampire movie list, but other than a little kiss here and a little hungry stare there, very little gay happening in this film. No lesbians. The vampire lovers. So this is far from the last time you'll hear this, but this movie is based on Carmilla, the OG lesbian vampire story. So you know there is a baseline gayness that will keep it out of the lower tiers. And listen, I know we're ranking these based on how gay they are and not necessarily their quality, but this one this one wasn't bad, but it was pretty frustrating how stupid everyone was acting, and there was this one guy who maybe I missed it, but I'm pretty sure it's never explained who he actually is, so that was weird. But speaking on how gay this one was, yeah, it was pretty gay. Carmilla slash Marcilla slash Mercala, the lady vampire. She goes by a lot of different names, but she was just seducing ladies left and right. She even seduced a guy, which is gross, but I'll forgive it because it lasted like maybe 10 minutes and it was a means to an end. She wasn't into it. She's also the first vampire I think we can say is explicitly lesbian because she goes on this whole monologue about how she wants to be loved by this other girl, Emma, and explicitly says she wants the love to not be platonic. She wants that real, true lesbian love. She is very problematic though. She kills a lot of people and does a lot of psychological torment. So I think I'm going to put this one in the toxic Yuri tier. The Velvet Vampire. Okay, so I know I just said I wasn't ranking these based on quality, and I'm still not, but I think it needs to be mentioned that this one is our first objectively very bad movie. The acting is so bad. The story makes no sense. All the characters act so irrationally, but you know what? It's camp. So it was very enjoyable. However, it is very slow. So it's most enjoyable at 1.25 speed, which is the speed I watched it at. As for the gayness, I would put this one on the same level as Blood and Roses. There's a little kiss here, a little touchy there, but this felt very lesbian light. It was like the LaCroix of lesbians. The plot mostly centered around straight romance, and the lesbianism felt very underdeveloped, and I was not convinced these ladies were into each other at all. I think the gayest thing that happened is when the vampire is chasing the lady through the bus station, trying to murder her while wearing the cuntiest little outfit you've ever seen. But that's just gay in concept, you know? So I'll put this one in the no lesbians tier. Daughters of Darkness. So last one was our first objectively bad one, and now we have what I'd consider our first objectively very good one. Daughters of Darkness has this very like surreal, dreamy quality to it. It's a foreign film, so you know it's very film student pretentious, which I love. I love feeling smarter than other people. No, but this film has a lot to say about the deconstruction of gender roles, patriarchy, queerness, and class, but it does it all while being very subtle and art house and abstract. Very nice. Like a creamy, mild, but very expensive cheese. Anyway, I'm not here to talk about how good this film is. I'm here to talk about how gay it is. For a good chunk of the movie, I was tossing this film back and forth between no lesbians and they were roommates. The vampire in this and her bull-cutted little assistant were totally a DL lesbian relationship, but they were kind of background characters for like the first half of the movie, and instead the story focused more on our main girl Valerie and her shitty husband. But the second half of the movie really upped the gayness as the vampire, who is Pussy Slay, by the way, and Valerie started getting all gay with each other, and then they like killed Valerie's shitty, abusive husband and drank his blood and ran away together. That was pretty gay. It doesn't last too long though, because they do they do get into a car accident and then blow up. So rip. And then I think the vampire lady like possesses Valerie's body. I'm not really sure, but anyway, their relationship is far from wholesome, and I really don't think they're in love with each other so much as they are like toxically codependent. So they're gonna go in the toxic Yuri tier. Sorry they were roommates. Better luck next time. Lust for a Vampire. Lust for a Vampire is a sequel to The Vampire Lovers. There's also another sequel called The Vampire Twins, but I'm not going to be covering that one because it's not gay enough to be on this list. But despite this film being a sequel to a film that made it to the toxic Yuri tier, Lust for a Vampire just ain't it. It actually starts out pretty gay with Mercala and her roommate having like a sensual little forbidden romance, but uh-oh, turns out Mercala is straight now and she actually doesn't give a fuck about her roommate and just wanted a little midnight snack. She then spends the vast majority of the film in a forbidden romance with a man. Boo! Disgusting. And for this unforgivable sin, this film will be first in our homophobic tier. Rip Mercala, I'm so sorry they made you straight. Vampiros Lesbos. So this one was quite a fever dream. The soundtrack was insane. Let me play you a little snippet of it. Literally sounded like that the whole movie. Crazy. Anyway, another shocker about this one is that Dracula's mentioned. Dracula mentioned? The vampire lady in this was turned into a vampire by Dracula, and the plot is loosely based on the novel as well. We've got our legal person visiting a vampire in their remote mansion, a crazy person in an asylum that is like psychically linked to the vampire, a doctor character that wants to destroy the vampire. And I think that's about it. But you know, it's just enough to be recognizable. And this one, guys, gays, was the most lesbian one I've seen by far. I'm very tempted to put it in the U-Haul on the second date, especially because of how quickly these two bitches fell in love with each other. It was crazy fast, like that. However, it does end with the human in the relationship, Linda, killing her vampire lesbian lover. However, Linda doesn't want to do this. In fact, she's very conflicted and sad she has to do this because her only other option is to become a vampire for the rest of forever, and she doesn't want to do that actually. So it's not toxic, but it's also not happy. And in my mind, I was reserving the U-Haul tier for happy ending stories, but I just don't think this one belongs in the toxic Yuri tier. Okay, I'm gonna put in the U-Haul lesbians. Okay. Yeah, I think it deserves to be there. This film was gay as fuck. The Shiver of the Vampires. Oh my god. Where to start with this one? So this one wasn't so much about lesbian vampires. It had a lesbian vampire, singular. And she didn't even have a romance. She wasn't even like the main character. She does seduce women, but not in a romantic way. And she has two lady henchmen who are in love with each other, but they aren't vampires. And the lady vampire is, I guess, the villain of the story, but she's far too much of a bad bitch for me to hate her. And this movie did her so dirty. This movie did her really dirty. Not only does she not even get to be the main character, but they have her get sexually assaulted by two men at the same time, and then she kills herself at the end of the movie. And if that wasn't bad enough, this whole movie is boring as sin. And if there is one thing a gay cannot abide by, it is boring. Homophobic tier. The Blood Spattered Bride. This is gonna be a tricky one for me. Okay, first of all, great movie. It's up there as one of my favorites I've watched so far, but the reason it's tricky is because this movie is very gay, but not really in the relationship way. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. We do see plenty of gayness between the vampire, who is Carmilla again, and her human love interest, Susan. But the majority of the gayness comes from our leading lady's feelings around intimacy. I think this film did a really good job of showing the emotions of lesbians who are caught up in having to perform heteronormativity. Susan is a newlywed and she loves her husband. He's a great guy, but she struggles with her lack of attraction towards him. He's not possessive or controlling, but she still feels trapped by him and she develops this growing resentment, and the vampirism in this film is really more of a vessel for showing these emotions. Carmilla was trapped in a similar marriage and it led to her killing her husband, and now Susan is beginning to have those same feelings. Susan's feelings of resentment grow into rage, and Carmilla is there to stoke the flames and really get her man-hating juices flowing. And once they've both become consumed by this rage, aka become vampires together, they go on this man-killing spree, and it's so well done. This movie does end with both of them dying, which is a bummer, but honestly, I think this might be one of the gayest, if not the gayest film we've looked at so far. So it's going in the U-Haul Lesbians tier. Oh, also, bonus points for being the first film so far that's actually said the word lesbian. Great job, guys. Female vampire. So this film was just straight up softcore porn. No plot. Unless you count the detective shaking his head and being like, we lost another one. Who keeps killing these people? As like plot, well, but I really don't. And to add insult to injury, this softcore porn wasn't even lesbian softcore porn. It was bisexual softcore porn, which would be fine if it wasn't heavy on the male gaze, as in looking, no gay perspective here. And for this, it will be going in the homophobic tier. Vampires. All right, another boring one. But we do get a lesbian vampire power couple this time, finally, right? But unfortunately, this one wasn't very gay. These ladies are in a relationship with each other, but they sleep with a lot of men. And every time they try to kiss each other, it's literally the worst kiss you've ever seen. They look like they're trying to eat each other. But I don't think this film is bad enough to be homophobic, and I obviously can't put it in the no lesbians tier. So this one will be our first official they were roommates. And how apt, right? Because these bitches were literally roommates. They lived in a big old scary mansion together. Lips of Blood. So this one had a plot that revolved around a man falling in love with a vampire lady, and I guess the reason this one is on the lesbian vampire list is because some of the background vampire ladies are in a relationship with each other. But honestly, that's so disappointing. I want to put this in either no lesbians or homophobic. But if I'm sticking to my guns here, I should probably put this one in they were roommates. But I'm going to put it in homophobic. Listen. How dare this movie waste my time like that? False advertising. Alucarda. So I really wanted to like this one. I think it had a lot of really cool concepts and the acting was incredible, especially from our main girl, Alucarda herself. The thing is though, that it ended up being really confusing. They set up a lot of things that they didn't really follow through on, or they brought up poignant questions about life and death and organized religion that they either contradicted later or just never followed through on either. Uh, it was pretty disappointing in the end. Also, it's crazy weird how the vampire girl's name is Alucarda, and at the beginning of the movie, it sets up her mom being like, "Oh shit, I gotta protect my daughter from this unseen force that's gonna try to hunt her down." And because her name is literally Dracula, spelled backwards with an A slapped on the end, you'd think the reveal would be that Dracula is her dad and trying to, like, convert Alucarda to the dark side or whatever. But no, Dracula's never mentioned actually, and the big bad of the movie is the devil, I guess. Like I said, big ideas never followed through on. But anyway, I'm supposed to be ranking this on how gay it is. And yeah, it was pretty gay. But the movie it kind of stops being about being gay like halfway through. In fact, you could argue being gay is really more of like a set dressing rather than the main issue, but I was pretty goddamn gay for a hot second there. So, in honor of Alucarda falling in love with her roommate, I'm going to put this in They Were Roommates. Oh my gosh! Congratulations. You made it halfway through my video. And as your prize, you get to hear a message from this video's sponsor. Me. That's right, me, your local lesbian and vampire enthusiast. And by that, I mean that I am a lesbian and also a vampire enthusiast. Not that I'm an enthusiast of both lesbians and vampires. But I mean, if if you wanted to. And I heard if you subscribe to my channel, you'll wake up tomorrow morning to find yourself transformed into either a lesbian or a vampire. Luck of the draw, flip of the coin. Neither you nor I know which one you're gonna get. And you can't have both. So if you want to gamble with your sexual orientation or your current status as a human person, please give me a like and subscribe and go check out my various social medias linked in the description below. Thank you! And back to the video. Fascination. Okay, so this one pissed me the fuck off. This movie is about these two beautiful lesbian vampires who are in love with each other. And then all of a sudden, this man, this criminal man, starts holding them hostage in their own home. And for some inexplicable reason, except it probably has something to do with the fact that this movie was written by a man. But for some goddamn reason, both of these lesbian vampires fall in love with this rusty, dusty criminal man. And one ends up killing the other over it. I'm so mad. I'm so mad. Immediate homophobic tier, bottom of the homophobic tier. Fuck you. Fuck this movie. This movie belongs in hell. Carmilla. The one thing I really had to say about this one is that it's the most faithful Carmilla adaptation we've looked at so far, and that's not that's not saying much with how many liberties everyone seems to be taking with this story. Other than that, I didn't really think this one was too gay, but it was just gay enough to keep it out of the no lesbians tier, so it's going in They Were Roommates. The Living Dead Girl. So it turns out this one is directed by the same guy who did Fascination. And great news, guys. He really redeemed himself with this one. This is some top-notch, fated lovers, doomed Yuri shit right here. Such a delectable little morsel. It's also got that childhood friend trope. Ooh, oh, oh, we're eating good tonight. This movie doesn't have anything explicitly gay in it. The two ladies don't even really kiss each other than like a little peck on the corner of the mouth. But the love they feel for each other is very visceral. You can feel it on the deepest, gayest level. These girls are literally killing for each other, sacrificing everything for each other. They made a blood pact as children to always love each other and die when the other one dies. And at the end of the movie, when the vampire lady can't control her hunger anymore and she eats her beloved, her screams of lesbian anguish are immaculate. This one is going in U-Haul on the second date for sure. The Hunger. All right, we've arguably got our most mainstream / star-studded cast with this one. David Bowie, Susan Sarandon, Touch Me. So that's cool. But it's not really a lesbian movie. It's very bisexual. It's a very bisexual movie. But to be fair, you can make that argument with with nearly every movie on this list. Anyway, it was definitely gay enough to stay out of the no lesbians tier, and I think it was also just gay enough to be higher than They Were Roommates tier. And let me tell you, this relationship, it was toxic. probably the most toxic we've seen so far. So it's of course gonna go in the toxic Yuri tier. The Mark of Lilith. So with this one, I'm gonna have to make a new tier. And that tier is unfortunately going to be, couldn't find it. And yeah, I couldn't find it. And that's a real shame because this one sounds like it would slap. From what I could find, this is like a 30-minute short film about a bisexual vampire lady in an abusive relationship with a vampire guy. And she's saved by a black lesbian vampire. And I assume they do gay shit and fall in love. I wish I could find this one and watch it because it's so rare to find black lesbians in media in general, let alone a black lesbian vampire, a rare gem for sure. If you can tell me where I can find and watch this, please do. But for now, it is lost media to me, and it will be going in the couldn't find it tier. Carmilla. Once again, another direct Carmilla adaptation, and once again, pretty loyal to the book with some inconsequential changes here and there. Gotta give props to the film for being the first one we've looked at so far that actually does have people of color in it. Yay! But I'm gonna have to take those props right on back because this film killed off all their characters of color. Boo. But as for the gayness, this one is a shocker. A lot like other Carmilla adaptations we've looked at. And I'm gonna put it in They Were Roommates tier. Nadia. I was pleasantly surprised by this one. It's another loose Dracula adaptation, but this time we're following the twin children of Dracula, Nadia, and I think the other one was named Edgar. I really enjoyed this one. I think this is the first one in here that had intentional comedy in it. Van Helsing was funny as fuck. Oh, also Renfield's here, which is a huge win for all those Ren heads out there. Yay! Me. And I love that Nadia just casually introduces him to people as her slave. And he's like, yeah, what's up? I'm her slave. Amazing stuff here. Okay, but what we really need to talk about is how gay this film is. And unfortunately, this one isn't very gay at all. There was one very quick little kiss, but this film has nothing to do with the lesbian experience, and it will be going in the no lesbians tier. Carmilla. Yet again, we have another. Couldn't find it. Although this is yet another Carmilla adaptation, I was actually looking forward to this one because from what I've heard about this film, it's like a more modern take on the story and takes place in New Jersey. Gagged. I would have loved to watch this one. So once again, if you've got any leads, let me know. Maybe I can do a follow-up video. Carmilla. Also couldn't find it. Obviously, another Carmilla adaptation. Wasn't as stoked for this one because, not gonna lie, it looked pretty low budget and shitty. But I could find woefully little about this one, so I guess I'll never know. Unless one of you guys can tell me where to find it. So let me know. We Are the Night. Okay, so let me preface this one by saying that I did like this movie. I thought it was a good movie. And I thought it was pretty adequately gay to a certain extent. I mean, it's about this tall, blonde vampire baddie and her brigade of short queens, after all. However, while the brood mother herself is undeniably lesbian, her harem seems to be more forced into being lesbians by her, which is. And our newest member of the group and main character is definitely not gay, unfortunately, and has this whole side plot romance with a policeman, of all people. Yuck. But despite all of this, I was still thinking I would put this in the toxic Yuri tier. Because let's face it, this shit is toxic. But then the finale happened, and the finale really changed where I thought this should go. So basically, what happens is the blonde baddie has lost all her other harem members. They died, rip. So now she only has main character girl left. But the problem is that main character girl is obviously in love with cop man and not blonde baddie. So the ladies get into a fight over this, which leads to blonde baddie also dying. And then it's implied that the main character girl and the cop guy run away together to live their unlives as a straight vampire couple. Yuck. Can you imagine being a vampire and also straight? What the hell? And let me just reiterate that I did like this movie, but the fact that it ends with straight love defeats evil lesbian, yeah, that's gonna go in the homophobic tier. Sorry. The Curse of Styria. We've got another Carmilla adaptation here, this time with a bit of a modern twist, and by modern I mean 1989, while also pulling from more traditional vampire lore. And once again, I liked this movie, but I didn't think it was very gay. I think the earlier scenes did a good job of capturing that feeling of innocent but deeply intimate friendships that teenage girls can have that kind of ride the line between platonic and romantic. But later, when Carmilla turns into a vampire, because she doesn't actually start the movie as a vampire in this version, but when she does become a vampire, she becomes less of a character and more of like an allegory for not quite mental illness, but like the consequences of ignoring female emotions. And therefore she gets really toxic and she doesn't really have a personality anymore. She does kiss Laura a little bit, but neither of them really seem into it. It feels more like a metaphor for the seductive allure of self-harm when you're in a dark place or something like that. This movie is really cool, and I love the themes and how the story is portrayed, but it's not very gay. And so with that, another Carmilla adaptation is going into They Were Roommates. Bit. Oh god, this movie is so millennial cringe, it makes me want to die. Just the opening scene was enough to make my skin crawl. The dialogue is so ass. This whole movie tries so hard to feel badass and edgy, and it's like, I'm not like all the other girls. I kick ass and take names. I don't take shit from anyone. And yeah, I don't need a man. Does that piss you off, conservatives? Yuck. It almost feels like this movie is trying so hard to emulate Diablo Cody, but failing so fucking miserably, it's embarrassing. And I have so many more problems with this movie, but to stop harping on it, I will say, while it has poor execution, I think it's a very good premise, and it did have one of the most diverse casts we've seen. Everyone was a lesbian vampire, no doubt, and we had a butch, a Latina, and black lesbians in this cast. So major props there. But once again, I had to take those props right on back because these diverse lesbians were very underdeveloped compared to the two white lesbian vampire leads. So, womp womp. And as for the gayness, it really wasn't that gay. Like, everyone was a lesbian, but there was a startling lack of lesbian activities. And for a film that wants so badly to be badass female empowerment pussy slay, it really didn't do any of that shit and actually had the main antagonist end up being one of the lesbians. And for all these sins, this film is going in the homophobic tier. Try not to be so cringe next time. Carmilla. Okay, we've got another dilemma on our hands. First of all, great film. No doubt about there being lesbians in it. There were lesbians. However, there is some doubt about there being any vampires. So first off, obviously this is yet another retelling of Carmilla. However, and this is my interpretation, I may be wrong, but this time I think it's left ambiguous if Carmilla is really a vampire or not. The house staff believes that she is because she has an aversion to religion and she behaves strangely, and worst of all, she's making their sweet baby Laura feel gay things. However, all these things can be explained by Carmilla just, being a lesbian who is maybe also autistic and just doesn't like organized religion for obvious reasons. But regardless, the staff is convinced that she's a vampire and is responsible for Laura's illness, which leads me to my second ranking dilemma, which is the ending. I would put this film in the U-Haul tier if the ending wasn't so violently homophobic. And I don't mean that in a way that I think the director and writer are homophobic. I mean that in the way that the characters within the film are homophobic and unfortunately win in the end. Yeah, spoilers. They murder Carmilla by stabbing her to death, and they do it in front of Laura while she screams and cries. And they did this because they were so homophobic, they convinced themselves she was a vampire. And yes, I think it's ambiguous. Maybe she was a vampire, but they still killed her for homophobic reasons more than anything. But you see my dilemma, right? This movie was gay as hell, but homophobia won in the end. So is this U-Haul, or is this homophobic? It certainly wasn't Toxic Yuri. They were much more than roommates. And it doesn't belong in No Lesbians. There were definitely lesbians in this. You know, as much as it pains me, the fact that homophobia wins in the end means it has to go in the homophobic tier. Oh, this sucks. Great movie. I get why it ended the way it did, but according to my own arbitrary rules, it belongs in the bottom. But you know what? I'll move it up to the top. Homophobic. Like that makes a difference, right? Good night, sweet prince. Carmilla. Okay. And last but not least, we have our final lesbian vampire film. This one is a short film and of course another Carmilla adaptation. And I wish I could say more, but in an anticlimactic turn of events, I could not find this one anywhere either. I went to the creator's Instagram and it looks like the only way you could have watched it was by buying tickets to the premiere. But the premiere was in April of 2021. So I think I missed it, guys. Once again, if you know any way I could possibly watch this, I would appreciate if you left a comment, but for now, this last film is going and couldn't find it. Okay, any last second switcheroos? I'm not gonna lie, I don't really care. Yeah, I mean, it looks good to me. Yay! I did it! Thank you for watching my ranking. Let's look at my ranking. Give it up for my final ranking. Before I end this video, I'm just gonna go on a little rant here. I need to talk about how disappointing it was for most of these lesbian vampire movies to not only be more often bisexual than lesbian. Once again, no biphobia here. I'm just saying, if you're telling me this film has lesbians in it, and I open the brown paper bag and it turns out, oops, it's actually oops all bisexuals, I'm gonna be a little pissed off about it. But not only was there rarely a true, genuine lesbian, but there was a disturbing absence of both butches and people of color. White femmes as far as the eye could see. What are we doing? We're slacking. Where are my butches? Where are my butch POC lesbian vampires? Get on that. Get snappy. Be the change you want to see in the world. Let me know what you think of my rankings. Have you ever heard of any of these movies on this list? Do you want to fight me? Huh? Huh? If you want to rank these movies yourself, I'll link to the tier list in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, if you subscribe, you'll wake up tomorrow morning transformed into either a lesbian or a vampire, but not both. But if you don't want the cruel hand of fate to decide if you'll either be a lesbian or a vampire, but not both, please stop asking about it. Why do you keep asking? Don't even worry about it. Bye!